Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wild Moments brought to you by explore.org. It's been such a long time since I've seen you all. I don't even know if I remember how to do this. But luckily, we have Mike in the house, who I actually haven't seen in a long time, too. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing okay. It's a beautiful day where I am.
Please tell us more about your beautiful day because I can't get over it.
Well, it's the end of the winter, beginning of spring. I think today the temperatures are going to be in the 40s Fahrenheit, so +5 C or something. It's around freezing right now. We had snow a few days ago, so the ground in the forest is still mostly snow covered. But I'm really looking forward to the frogs and the salamanders coming back out. So that maybe that'll happen pretty soon for me.
And when do you expect the snow to start melting and for things to, come alive?
Well, it, winter is kind of doesn't really want to leave in this part of North America where I am. So it's a long, slow process. I will probably have very little snow in the ground by the end of the month, but every once in a while there's like just this storm that comes in and dumps 20 centimeters in the end of April or something stupid like that. And then everyone's just like, again, we have to shovel again, or we have to plow again. So, but then I look at what's happening in South Africa and I see things are like, they're green and vibrant and everything looks so warm and animals are just lounging in the sun. And it feels, it feels very like a very different place.
It is, and I'm probably a bit of a whinger when I say it was very cold this morning in Johannesburg. Very cold. But it's a beautiful day. There's sunshine, and that's the one thing I love about Johannesburg is even if it is cold, there's almost always sunshine. But Joburg has been proving me wrong over the last couple days, but today is lovely and sunshiny. And luckily, where we have most of our cameras up in the Lowveld, it's basically dry or wet and warm no matter what. Although cold mornings in an open vehicle is very, very difficult.
Yes.
But I'm being spoiled, obviously. I also have a very romanticized feeling because you were talking a little bit about how, this a storm can come in and dump more snow, and then you've got to go back to working with the snow, right? But in my head, I have this romanticized idea of, oh, the snow is beautiful, but I forget about the fact that, oh, you probably have frost on your windscreen and snow building up on your cars and clearing driveways and all this maintenance involved in it, right?
Yeah, it is beautiful. It's stunning in a lot of ways. But if you have to drive somewhere, yeah, it sucks. Luckily, I don't drive very often, so I don't really have to worry about it. It's really if you have to go somewhere that the snow is a problem. If you don't have to go anywhere, it's wonderful. So we kind of like we're trying to adapt our infrastructure to snow, and the snow is like we don't care. We're just gonna I'm gonna be a pain in the butt no matter what.
I didn't know the snow had such a bad attitude. Uh,
Snow don't care.
Snow don't care. Much like many of the animals we will be watching this this afternoon. Well, if this is your first time joining us for Wild Moments, welcome. We're live and interactive, so you can send through questions and comments, and we have a ton coming through. Amberco, you're waving hello to everyone with your coffee. Mike, I know that you're very much a water drinker. But since you're out in the cold, in the shade, for our benefit, do you have something warm to accompany you?
No, I don't. I just have a bottle of water. So that's it right now. Although I
I
have
also have,
I'm glad to see that you have water as well. But on days where I've been out, like if I go on a long day and it's very cold, if I can carry like a thermos of hot chocolate, that really is luxury in those situations.
That sounds amazing. But I also really like warm water. So maybe that's something to go with next time. Zygote, saying namaste to us too, and namaste to you as well, Zygote. Thank you for joining us. Casper said, Ghost says, good morning, Trish and Mike, and everyone. You're ready with the coffee and some amazing highlights. Yes, we do have some pretty cool highlights, and I've been missing the bush a lot over the last month or so that I haven't seen you. So I'm also really looking forward to it. W. Bouchard, you say good morning from Toronto, good afternoon from South Africa, and good morning from you too, Mike, right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, same time zone as me if you're in Toronto.
nice. And Caro says hi, DNC says good morning, and you're actually saying that you haven't been able to watch the cams much the last week, so you're looking to forward to see what you've missed. Nice, you're also on that coffee train. MG Leopard Spots, you say good day, can't wait for the show and the awesome two sharing interesting animals facts. Yes, I mean, if you've watched the show before, you know that we don't get to see the clips beforehand. And from what Kirst has told us, Kirst is sitting in the background, she's told us that there's some pretty interesting behaviors that we can watch. So I'm very excited about that. Jan Powers, you say, hi everyone, you're a bit late, but you hope everyone is well and you're happy that I'm back. I'm happy that I'm back. Dana, you say, you can relate to Mike. Here I'm going to butcher this,
Sas
Saskatchewan.
yes, Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan. Nice. You're only starting to feel like it's spring now. Wow.
I
Um,
do I joke sometimes with my colleagues at Explore who are often based out of Southern California, again, where it's very different than sort of like the rest of North America. So yeah, people in Saskatchewan or Canada or the northern United States, the Californians, they'll be down there lounging on the beach in January or whatever. We're all like huddled against the frostbite.
I find it so interesting, and I know it's something that we all know, right? But when you think about how a single country can have so much biodiversity and cultural diversity and climatic diversity. It really does make me feel full of awe and wonder that you can have people in the South that feel like this and people in the North that are having a completely different experience.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
W. Bouchard, you're asking what's the coldest that it gets in South Africa? Well, obviously people congregate and towns form in areas where the temperature is not fluctuating a whole lot, right? So in cities, the temperature is not getting crazy low. The lowest I felt here in Johannesburg was 0, and that's usually early in the morning. But then there's also areas where there's tall mountains, like in the Drakensberg and close to the Lesotho border, that you're going to get snow. In Cape Town, or in the Western Cape, you also have mountains that have snow. So obviously there it's going to be colder, but those are not, hugely populated areas. Those are areas where you're probably going to go to see the snow, as opposed to actually living most of your life there. But they do have small villages. So on average, for example, today I thought it was a cold morning and the low was 8 degrees and it lasted for about 1 hour. And then at the moment it's about 24 degrees Celsius.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a huge difference in the minimum maximum temperatures. In fact, in most of the country. Up in the Lowveld, where we have most of our cameras, that temperature difference is not as great. Sometimes you can go to bed and it's still 27 degrees Celsius. And the next morning it's maybe 32. So not a huge jump. So again, climatic diversity as well. We jump into our first clip.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So Kirst says this, she's never seen an Nile monitor behave in such a way. So let's head over to Katmai and see what she's talking about. Well, I don't usually see them in water like this. This is almost a puddle, right? Oh, wow.
It's almost like it's hurting prey with its
Yeah.
body.
Yeah, exactly. And the frog just jumped off. Did you get it? Yeah, you got it.
And was there a turtle in the water too? I mean, that's kind of an exquisite hunting technique
Yeah.
by this lizard.
I've never seen this either. Kirst, are these separate occasions? Like on different days? Oh, there we go. Another frog. Oh, this is so interesting. So Kirst says it's the same day and the same sighting that the camera was watching it and had multiple successful hunts this way.
You know, that is, I think that is fascinating to see.
Yeah.
Again, the lizard's awareness of its body, its utilization of the shallowness of the water, clearly understands that its prey wants to be in the water. That's, where it wants to hide. Yeah, this is really fascinating. I mean, you see, and then that turtle, it's just
Oh.
like, leave me alone, please. That was great.
Oh. So you can also see how the tail is really good for the water monitor to move through the water, right? It's laterally flattened, so it it can push the water easily. And I feel that it's almost stiffening it somehow, making it using it to its benefit in this particular situation. It's not just leaving it limp. And it comes
Yeah, for
back to the awareness of its body that you were talking about. It knows it has these advantages and it's using that to even more advantage. I've never seen them hunt like that ever.
yeah, I wonder how it learned that technique. Because again, if it was like spread throughout the species, sort of as just an instinctual thing, you would be seeing it more often. So that must be like a learned behavior that it stumbled upon at some point in time. And they're not, as far as I correct me if I'm wrong, they're not social animals, right? So they don't live in
Yeah.
groups where they're going to be observing, each other hunting. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is really neat. So I don't think we give reptiles uh, as much credit as we should be giving them. We're prone to thinking like warm and fuzzy things are the smartest. In
Yeah.
some ways they are, but those ectothermic animals are pretty special too.
Oh, absolutely. And if you're wondering, so the normal way that they would hunt is that they would dig for prey a lot. You would see you if you notice they have quite long claws, so they use that to dig for prey. They might run after prey, which is quite funny to watch because they are good runners, but they're just a little awkward when they do it. So this kind of technique is something that I have never ever seen. And Mike, sometimes so they aren't social, like you said, but sometimes there may be multiple water monitors at the same water point. So I wonder if those other ones would at least observe the behavior and if this becomes something that um, other monitors try and pick up. But the problem, I think, with learned behavior, or maybe not the problem, but it's not just about watching, but it's about learning more closely. And I think that other monitors might not be able to approach close enough to actually learn kind of the technique.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
Just yeah, being like, hey, something's going on over there, but I feel a little uncomfortable just trying to really
exactly.
see what's happening there. But that was fascinating, and it seems like some people were mentioning that. Yeah, it happened. Kirsten says it happened for about 30 minutes.
Yeah,
So cleaning out that watering hole of frogs, probably.
absolutely. And in a way, we're almost, it's little things like this that can change the behavior, then affect the adaptations, and then affect essentially the evolution of this animal, right? And that's this, like we're witnessing a very special, potentially a very special moment in the species.
And I'm glad we're able to share this stuff with people.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of in more of a golden age of animal behavior observations. That because formerly a lot of this stuff was just available to people who were biologists who could go out and they could spend months at a time in the field observing and describing the behaviors of animals. And that wasn't something that was accessible to the average person. But now we have these webcams and we can see animals doing really incredible things. And I think it's really opening our eyes to the capacity of animals just to behave in different ways rather than just be, automatons, which they were, often formerly described as.
Yeah, exactly. And this gives us, I mean, as you were saying this, I was thinking, oh, maybe when we see this kind of interesting behavior, we just write a little report. So it makes it even more accessible to maybe scientists who are not plugged into to Africam or to explore.org. Because it's a privilege. It really is a privilege to be able to have this kind of access. Rain G, you're asking where these cameras located. So Cat Eye Pan is in Baluli, which is mm, close to the Kruger National Park, if you're familiar with that area. And then we have other cameras as well. There's quite a few in the Baluli area. There's some in northern KwaZulu-Natal, basically a lot in South Africa. And then we also have cameras in East Africa as well. And we'll be showing you those also. But if you log into the website, into the Africam website, you'll be able to watch and see all the different locations of all the different cameras, because there are a lot. Casper's third ghost, you say the monitor lizard looked like he was taking fish hostage. And it's so fun to watch the lizard the other day. I'm sure it was. And I think it would be really interesting to see if that lizard attempts the behavior elsewhere. The problem with those kinds of ephemeral pans is that they could dry up, in a day. So maybe the lizard will try again, come back to the same area because there's an association with successful hunting in that particular spot. Maybe it'll try elsewhere and see if the behavior spreads. That would be really cool. MG leopard spots, you're asking, would that be habituated behavior? No. When we talk about habituated, we're talking about an animal getting used to something, whether they're used to pulling a string to give them a treat, that would be learned and habituated. But when we speak about habituated, we're talking more about them just getting used to something. So maybe they get used to the game drive or they get used to people. Now that's different from them being tame. You can't interact with the animal in any way, but they understand that you're, so you just become basically like your game drive vehicle could be a moving rock for all the animal cares. It's not a threat, it doesn't change anything, it's just there. So that's what we mean when we speak about habituated. This seems to be learned behavior. All right, that was very cool. But there was another thing that Kirst said that she had an interesting description, and I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "I mean, I don't know what they're doing." So let's head over to Tal and watch wildebeests interact in an unusual way, I suppose. The one definitely looks younger, or is it actually just a female? Oh,
I wouldn't necessarily be able to hazard a guess. I don't know if they're
So I think
agitated or acting playful.
it's a bit unusual because sexing wildebeest is quite difficult. But if you look at the one in the front, you can see that he's darker, and you can also, if you look at his belly, you see this little bump. So that's his penis sheath basically, and you see that that's absent from the one behind it, who doesn't have that bump, and it's slightly browner. Again, this only makes sense if you can see two wildebeests and actually make a comparison. So that's why I say it's difficult. And it's unusual because it seems to be the female that is antagonizing, I suppose, the
Mhm.
male. And he's getting quite riled up about it. You can see that from he's taking on a mating position every now and then.
Do you think she's maybe being a little flirtatious there and saying, "Hey,
Uh,
look, pay more attention to me"?
it's hard to tell, and she could be. But generally speaking, the females will stay in their female and youngster groups. So for her to and do this, ooh, have you lost me? Am I back?
We lost you
Yes,
for
you can hear me?
about 5 seconds. Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Um, for uh, for the female to go out of her way seems unusual to go and pursue this male. So again, something that I never seen before, but she also looks like quite a small female. So I wonder if she's a young female who is just a bit playful.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. It's one of those things, we see so much in animals, like with the monitor lizard we were looking at, like clearly its motivation was it wanted to hunt, it wanted to
yeah.
eat. In this situation, it's one of those, again, those examples of animal behavior we'd have to ask it. We'd have to ask her, like, what are you doing? And since we
Exactly.
can't do that, we can only really speculate.
Exactly. And the more actually we've been doing these shows and the more sort of unusual behavior that we see, um, I've started to realize that animals engage in a lot of play. And there isn't always a motivation. And I think as biologists, we sort of want to assign motivation because there must be some motivation associated with survival to some degree. But a lot of the time, it's so subtle, and we don't know what the motivation is, and it could just be play. And we've been seeing that, I mean, our interpretation of it, seeing it a lot. And I think that might be what's happening here as well.
I would agree with that. Yeah, it's hard to ascribe motivation when it's not clearly linked to like a survival benefit that you can see.
Yeah.
But those things, again, they happen not only with the survival benefits can happen with individual animals, like with fitness costs and rewards just over months or years, or it can be something that is realized or actualized over time with natural selection too. So we, but animals do things just too, but just because they're fun. Like I didn't
Yeah,
play sports when I was a kid and I don't ride my bicycle now necessarily because it gives me some sort of fitness benefit, although it does. I do it basically just because those things are fun, right? And that's probably
yeah,
more of what in that moment, that's what matters to the animal.
exactly. Kaoru, you say that she had her head down. You're absolutely right. And you say that the whole time, and that was interesting. So this means she was going after him on purpose. So if you watched, she was had her head down and then she'd flick it up every now and then. And that's something that we see a lot in male wildebeests because that's how they get predators. If a lion or a leopard is coming at them front on, their best defense is to lower their head and then flick with their horns, right? Because maybe they'd hook the predator. But you also see that kind of behavior between males. So you brought in something that I didn't really think about in that kind of behavior in males is associated with certain times, right? When they're feeling particularly territorial or they're looking to mate, which is usually associated with high levels of testosterone. So could it be that she hasn't been experiencing high levels of testosterone and is starting to display what we think of as male-only behavior? Again, this is something that we've seen in other animals as well. I've seen this in lions, or I've read papers about lionesses that have unusually high amounts of testosterone, and then they start to even grow a mane. And they will even start engaging in behaviors that are also mostly associated with males. So that could also be something going on. But my gut still feels like it was a playful act.
We're also missing the context of what how they engaged initially. It's,
Yes.
the lead up to it. Were they approaching one another? Were they in a group of animals, and those animals were doing something that affected those two individuals? Those things always, they, or not always, but they can matter quite a bit the in the ultimate interaction between,
Yeah.
two animals.
And also many animals, and this is something that I've also had to learn, and I learned a lot from actually being in the field and guiding, is that normally you would bunch species, right? Bunch individuals in the species to have these certain behaviors, but each individual can react differently, can have different preferences. And if we had seen the initial interaction, I mean, he could have wanted to mate with her and she got a bit irritated, and normally they would just flick and walk away, but she decided to, she was more irritated than normal. We don't know. Anyway, we have 3 minutes left. As usual, Mike and I are chatting away. But let's head over to Lentore, which is in Kenya. So, Rangi, this is one of those camps that we have in East Africa. And let's watch some monkeys watching some terrapins. Okay, we've got some vervets. And they're quite young.
This is almost a situation where if I can anthropomorphize for a moment, but the verb, it's like, what can I get away with here? How close can I get?
Yeah. And I think it's initially, I think much like children, right? You're just curious, and then suddenly you want something from the situation. I just want to check it out first, but now what can I get you? And terrapins are also, I mean, we saw with the monitor lizards, terrapins are also one of those animals that just don't care. Oh, now sometimes they just do this and doesn't necessarily mean they want to mate. They just like to bask on things. Sometimes they bask on each other.
Curious how the verb doesn't quite have the courage to touch it. It seemed like it wanted to. Again, it's like, how close can I get? And what are they going to do? Are they going to lunge at me, or are they going to flee back into the water?
And now they've disappeared. It's like a magic trick. Oh my, look at that. Oh, that's very, very cool. Again, we see this in generally, I don't like to say more intelligent animals because we can only measure intelligence by our own, set of standards. But you see it a lot in those animals that have or that have been studied to be more intelligent, or like sarcopithecine primates, right? Uh, but curiosity and play, you just see it so much. And I mean, this here was, again, not something I've seen with vervet monkeys and terrapins, but something I see vervet monkeys do all the time for anything.
Okay, so that's not a one-off. That's if they see
No.
something strange, they're like, "Hey, what is this?"
Yeah, exactly. And that something strange can be anything. It could be a clip on your hair, and then suddenly there's a vervet monkey following you because it wants to have a look. It can be your bathroom window. For some reason, they really like going into bathrooms and having a look at all your products.
Okay, it's good to know.
Yeah, but very, very cute. Yes, Bridget, absolutely so cute. And I hope that the clips today got you thinking a little more about animals and play and individuality and species, uh, individual personalities within a species, but also what cool behavior we get to see on the cameras. And I'm going to think about how we can document that for the scientific community as well, because these are some super cool things.
Absolutely. And our webcam audience is part of that. Like you
Absolutely.
let us know what's going on because we can't watch 24/7, but you are watching.
Absolutely. And I mean, just like with this wildebeest interaction that we watched, we only saw this bit that was recorded, but so many of you would have been watching before that, and all of that information adds to what we can provide to the scientific community as well. So thank you all. And it is time to say goodbye. So thank you again for joining us. And thank you so much, Mike. I hope that you have wait, do you want more snow or don't you want more snow?
I know I want to see some critters now. I want to see some
Okay.
frogs and some salamanders and the migrating birds. I want those to return. So yeah, winter's great, but I'm ready to see leaves on the trees once again.
Okay. Well, then we wish you a swift journey out of winter so that you can see all your wonderful critters. And now you can go stand in the sun and defrost. Thank you so much for joining us. It is always a huge pleasure to have you on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, everyone. Until next time. Bye for now.